Welcome to this very special edition of Monday Evenings with the Maestro. My name is Maestro Devlin, and I am the music director of the Wheeling Symphony Orchestra. Now, here at the WSO, the last few weeks have been very exciting as we embarked upon our first ever Festival of Ideas. As part of this festival, we've examined the lives and music of three major composers, Florence Price, Richard Wagner, and Dmitri Shostakovich. And we did so through the lens of how music and politics intersected in each of their lives. Now, on tonight's episode, we're going to play for you a few highlights from the conversations we've had about these composers in case you've missed some of these sessions, and we know that you're going to enjoy the conversations within. To begin, we're going to hear from Karen Walwyn, the Director of Keyboard Studies at Howard University. Please enjoy her conversation about the life and legacy of Florence Price.
The juba, for example, in the last movement of the concerto, this is a good spot. If you haven't actually watched or heard any of the African rituals being performed, it's kind of hard to imagine what are we looking for in the music. So, for example, that's the beginning of the last part of the concerto. And so if you're playing it without rhythm, wait, I think I still have some dance with. Well, those are the notes. However, there's a whole different ball game field that we're now inside of, and it brings her music to life. Juba dance?
Yeah. So exactly. The Juba dance was something I became aware of. She has it in the piano concerto. It's used in two of her symphonies, the first and the third. And so we have to kind of rely not just on we have to rely on examples of the music that she was referencing to kind of give us a better picture.
Some of you may have heard reference to George Gershwin, and while I can't tell you who may have heard who, I think it's pretty obvious that in so much of Florence Price's music, you're hearing repeated materials and textures and rhythms that represent all of what we've been talking about this morning. And so it is an interesting coincidence that there's a couple of passages from I Got Rhythm that you can actually hear in the concerto.
So for the Fifth Symphony, he starts a project because the Fourth Symphony was removed before its premiere. The Fourth Symphony had already been written. It was on music stands about to be rehearsed, and the Pravda article decrying Lady Macbeth came out, and immediately the premiere of the Fourth Symphony was canceled. And the Soviet Artists Committee said to Shostakovich, you have one chance, write a Fifth Symphony. It must be heroic, it must be heraldic, and it must raise up Soviet ideals. So Shostakovich wrote the Fifth Symphony and subtitled it A Soviet Artist's Reply to Just Criticism. Now, could he possibly have meant that the criticism was just? Probably not. But again, he's trying to save his life. So can you imagine, if you're an artist, you want your true voice to be expressed in your art. That's hard enough. He's now writing a symphony where if Stalin doesn't like it, he will be murdered, for sure. And on top of that, he wants to maintain his integrity somehow and relate to the Soviet people that he supports them, because at this time, it's oppression. The entire government is oppressing people, even though they are ostensibly about the people rising. Now there's a proletariat class. Now there's a Soviet governing class that is murdering people with whom they disagree. So Shostakovich, I think, accomplished something unassailable. He wrote a symphony that Stalin loved, and he wrote a piece that every single person who was a common person in Russia understood to be a harsh criticism of the government and of Stalin. And that's the magic of this piece, because I heard that at 19 years old. And how many pieces of music do we know that are trying to be beautiful or thoughtful or confounding? This piece was life-saving. And I feel life-saving force in the piece.
When thinking about Wagner, there are really two major essays that give us an insight, and then a few questions that can be asked as a result. And the first was an essay that Wagner wrote under his own name in 1849, entitled Kunstwerk in der Zukunft, the ideal artwork of the future. And he suggested that every piece of art has a variety of things in it, but Gesamtkunstwerk, a whole piece, when everything comes together, literally in the German, a piece with everything in it, would have a text and music and appropriate theatricality presented in a beautiful atmosphere. And when all those things came together, you'd have truly a stunning work of art. But the truth is that isn't really all he meant. He saw the Gesamtkunstwerk, the whole piece of art, as also taking into account religion and politics and economics and cultural themes. And so the overarching theme of this Festival of Ideas is really Wagnerian. The idea that music does, in fact, speak to the cultural and political and social issues of our real world and cannot be divorced from the reality.
And I just want to give a quote from Florence Price so I can help you understand the background to her music a little bit better. This was from a letter she wrote Serge Koussevitzky, the conductor of the Boston Symphony. She said, "Having been born in the South and having spent most of my childhood there, I believe I can truthfully say that I understand the real Negro music. In some of my work, I make use of the idiom undiluted. Again, at other times, it merely flavors my themes. And at still other times, thoughts come in the garb of the other side of my mixed racial background. I have tried to, for practical purposes, to cultivate and persevere a facility of expression in both idioms, although I have an unwavering and compelling faith that a national music, very beautiful and very American, can come from the melting pot just as the nation has done.
Seems less of a threat, but once you get into her story and you find out it didn't change much. She still had to struggle. She still got pushed down and beat down and stripped of levels of her humanity, and she still persevered. That's the stuff that I think has to be brought up. Her musicianship and musicality is incredible, but I always think, what can reach the cat like me that was walking around these streets 2 years ago, just outside this building, that knew nothing of symphonies or Florence Price? But that's the hook, because someone like that who can persevere and still advance and become someone of notoriety in her field, so can you.
I hope that you have enjoyed these clips from our Festival of Ideas. I want to firstly thank all of our panelists and performers who helped make these events possible. Dr. Karen Walwyn, Rabbi Joshua Leaf, Ron Scott, Dr. Antoine Clark, Dr. Linda Cohen, Dr. Jerry Lee, and our amazing WSO musicians, Rachel Stegeman, Juan Jaramillo, Jennifer Gerhardt Mangone, and Nadine Sherman. I would also like to thank the Schenck Family Charitable Trust, who made this festival possible, and we were honored to present these events as a tribute to the life of Bill Hogan. Finally, I want to invite all of you to join us this Friday, May 20th at 7:30 p.m. at the Capitol Theater for our culminating concert with the full WSO, Music as History from West to East. Thank you all for watching, and I look forward to seeing you at the Symphony.